Hey everybody, this is Ben Kesnoka, co-founder and partner at Village Global, a network-driven venture firm. And this is our podcast, where we go deep on all things business and technology with world-leading experts.
Welcome to VC Mastermind. Today we have an incredible interviewee. Kristen is the founder and CEO of Strut Consulting. I'm going to let her explain a lot of that because she has a depth of experience in the back offices and operation centers of Silicon Valley. I've had the opportunity of knowing Kristen, I think for maybe a decade and a half or so. We worked together out of the homebrew office. And so it's just been amazing to be able to know you for this long and get to see how you've been helping dozens of venture capital firms across Silicon Valley. So thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure. And it's so fun to be able to do this with you all this time later as well.
Totally. Amazing. Well, again, I kept my interview or my introduction of you short because I would love for you to kind of tell your story and how you got to be working with so many VC firms, because I think it's really special. So do you mind sharing?
Sure, of course.
Cool.
I landed into venture by accident, as so many people do, I feel. I applied to a job on Craigslist, LOL, glad to date myself, and ended up on Sandhill at NEA, New Enterprise Associates, for those who are maybe not acronym friendly.
Yeah.
And I joke, I earned my Sandhill Road stripe. I was there doing a combination of administrative work and ops, and then marketing and events. So probably would have been a lifer had I not gotten in so young. And when the emerging manager flywheel started to really pick up, or initially pick up in 2013, 12 range, I was very fortunate to getting in with the guys at Homebrew. It's all about, who you know and who you have access to here. Got the opportunity to join them right as they were getting Fund One off the ground and be in an office with you and them and a handful of other really fun companies and friends of the firm, and help them build their massive machine now. It's just the two of them, but it is like a powerhouse little machine, I guess. And from there, I worked with a variety of other emerging funds. My NEA ties brought me back to helping spin up a firm that they had seeded with Polaris and Excel on the emerging side. And anyway, all those experiences led to sort of a critical moment in mid-2016 where I wanted to continue working with managers, but was interested in doing it in a more dynamic way. And that's when I started Strut. And my goal was to provide a lot of expertise and muscle and lift to all of these GPs who are leaving big firms to start their own shops, athletes turn VCs, operators turn VCs, and all of these new archetypes that were getting into the space. And what we do today is very much the core of what I've always done, so back office operations. So working with all the core service providers, legal, fund admin, tax and audit, banking, being that sort of block and tackle on all of the mundane, unsexy things that need to get done at a fund on a weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annual basis. And then I also have a lot of high touch on the LP side, so helping with fundraisers on the investor relations side and helping with annual meetings and all that kind of fun stuff. And that's sort of the core of what Strut is now. We offer fractional operations, investor relations, and also fractional finance to emerging funds and established emerging funds. And we also offer a little bit of event support for established clients. We don't have to get into those weeds today.
Amazing. Well, we have another VC Mastermind episode with Vienna Poes, your colleague, talking to a lot of the operational and kind of expectation setting for fundraising into the future. If you're listening to this, definitely tune into that episode as well. But today, Kristen, what we're going to talk about is really setting up the firm, a venture capital firm, for long-term success in the long haul. And I think you have a framework of how you think about really building a strong foundation upon which GPs can really kind of count as ground zero and then scale from there. And so, do you want to start to introduce that? Like, what are some of those pillars that we'll continue to talk through?
Absolutely. And just for listener reference, this is all rooted in me sitting back and supporting and watching, hundreds of firms evolve and grow over time, good, bad, and otherwise. I would say when I was solo doing Strut from 2016 to 2020, I was working with 3 to 5 funds at a time, and then also working with First Republic Bank and Silicon Valley Bank's emerging manager teams supporting their clients. May they all rest in peace, the banks on anyway.
Yeah.
Or those
Seriously.
former teams.
Crazy days.
Yeah, they were all wonderful. As I decided to start scaling Strut in 2020, main in large part to more business coming in need from emerging funds than one person could handle, is how we started growing, adding Vienna, who Jacob mentioned about a couple of years ago, to help lead our investor relations team. And so all of this thoughts that I have on this particular topic are rooted in, all of that time and plus the new era of Strut from 2020 till now, which is working with, 50 plus venture clients, all shapes and sizes. I've worked with, micro funds of 5 million, proof of concept, hyper-focused thesis, all the way up to, a billion in AUM, multi-fund firm, solo GPs, small teams, big teams. And then I've obviously been at big shops, medium, and everything in between. So this is definitely what I see as a recipe for success when you're building your firm, whether you're doing it from day one, or my opinion is there's never the wrong time to start doing this. So if it's something that you haven't done and want to get into, we can definitely get into those pieces too. But this is all rooted in doing a mission, vision, values exercise. We ask our portfolio companies to be best in class, and certainly probably ask our founders, the companies that funds invest in, to do this work. And my attitude is, why shouldn't we also eat our own breakfast? This stuff is so important for a variety of reasons as funds start to grow and mature. Mission, obviously providing clarity of purpose, and vision, giving future direction and aspiration and alignment. And then, values definitely are the cultural foundation of your firm, how you want to be perceived and how you want to attract talent internally, and as well as, also the founders and LPs that you want to work with. Having a good cultural foundation with yourself helps with the alignment as well. And I think the tragic thing is I see so many firms who just sort of skip this step in the process, which is totally natural because getting a first fund off the ground is completely overwhelming. No one prepares you for all the lift, not only from a fundraising capacity, which, in this competitive market is very challenging, and, it's taking funds infinitely longer to raise than, in previous cycles. But, from the operational foundation setting, getting all of your service providers in place, getting the deck just right, even all of the fantastic programs that are now out there for emerging managers to get, some support in this and kind of help demystify the process. They don't really go deep on the operational burden of running the fund like a business and how much that pulls on GPs, taking them away from, why they got in this to begin with, which is invest in categories and founders that, they love. So,
Yep.
And so it's natural to skip this piece because who has the time? But I couldn't recommend it more. And there are a lot of reasons why. And I'm going to get into some anecdotal examples, but let's start at the top.
Great.
Doing this exercise, it provides all of your sort of strategic vision and focus, which when you're in the iterative stage of putting your pitch deck together and from defining, what you want to focus on, from, your investment thesis and who you want to, the firm you want to pitch to your LPs, doing a mission, vision, values exercise, or MVV, as I'll call it to keep the jargons easy, can really be a clarifying and foundationally important piece of your firm building, and supports that thesis and your pitch deck, and gives a really clear path forward that you can communicate not only when you're talking about your firm to LPs and key stakeholders, but generally it can be a really helpful tool to do some initial 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year planning, goal setting, and give you some guardrails for firm building. And of course, these things are going to evolve and change over time as your firm evolves and changes over time, but it gives you like a sense of a roadmap, a clear path for the future to really get going and help you decide who you want to be as a firm as you're growing up. Part two, and this is, it helps you differentiate in the marketplace, which given this insanely competitive fundraising landscape,
Yep.
having a compelling mission and vision can serve to distinguish you from your peers, help you resonate more strongly with prospective LPs, founders that are competing, or you're competing with, and with other firms in your category to win term sheets on, and other key stakeholders in your space and in the ecosystem. Having that can be very powerful and give you a real true North Star, which I think is super important.
And would you consider that brand, like the brand of the firm, or is this
It can
kind of a
certainly feed
component that
that.
has it go into it?
Yeah, I would say it certainly can feed your brand. And I think we'll go a little bit deeper on that for sure, because I think there's some definite things to think about when it comes to how you want to brand your firm and the kind of marketing presence, social presence you want to have. Doing this MVV exercise definitely feeds that and reinforces, your approach there. And I'm going to kind of talk through 3 little case examples of how.
Great.
But yeah, so, and then obviously we kind of hit on this already. Defining your firm's culture, doing a mission, vision, values exercise can certainly, set the tone for your firm's culture, and will influence, how you and the people you hire work together, treat each other, speak and represent the brand, et cetera, which is, again, incredibly important. The thing I like the most about MVV is it, from my perspective, provides a clear decision-making framework for all of the things you're going to be faced with making significant and small decisions on as your firm evolves and grows. I think having a really strong mission, vision, values gives you this alignment on your firm's core identity and can basically become a filter and a litmus test for all big and small decisions you need to make. And I'm going to give some cool examples about that in a sec. And then the final thing, when you have strong mission, vision, and values, you're able to attract the best talent. You can communicate these things to prospective hires. And, everyone here wants the best. And everyone also in this world wants to be an inventor, it feels like. And I know, knowing GPs as I know them, like they want the very best in their firms. They, mediocrity is not the bar. And I think you can really win the best talent when your employees know who you are and what you're about, and can resonate with that and feel inspired by your bigger purpose, and get involved in a firm because they believe in it and they believe in your vision and your mission. And we're going to go a little bit deeper on that too in a sec.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's such a great high level perspective on MVV framework, to look at the polar opposite. Like what happens if firms do not properly do this from the beginning? What are some of the things you've seen go awry?
Yeah. I think there's like 3 sort of case examples or archetypes of firms who don't have this really locked in, whether they've done a formal exercise or it's not a fundamental part of the founder or the founding team. My first one I call is chasing the dragon. We see firms who are struggling because they have no, individual GP or firm conviction about who they are, who they want to be when they grow up, and how they want to show up in the world and even within the ecosystem. So I see them spending endless amounts of time worrying about what their peers are doing, copying their peers, chasing their peers, chasing the ecosystem fads. And my personal belief is don't do things just because everyone else is doing it. And I think like a case example is, seeing the rise of platform and portfolio service in the last 10, 15 years. And a lot of firms trying to activate in this category. And obviously it's got wonderful benefits for your portfolio. It can be incredibly helpful to founders at the early stage, especially. But a lot of firms lack a crystal clear vision on what their unique value proposition is and how to effectively deliver that to founders. And they start with what I see as a kind of a kitchen sink approach, like, well, this competitive firm is offering talent. We should do that too. You need to build out a resource database. And if you have mission, vision, values, it truly becomes this litmus test or filtering method for, is this aligned with our greater purpose? Is this in alignment with our values? And is this alignment with, our mission? And how are we going, if all of those are in alignment, then like, let's move forward with X. And the other thing I'll add here is, regardless of whether it is or isn't aligned, my other hot take is don't do anything in this category without having clear metrics for how you're going to measure it and how you're going to track success, because you just get lost in the sauce, which brings me to number 2, being constantly lost in the sauce. Firms without mission, vision, values are constantly struggling with shifting priorities, shifting job scopes during an active hiring process, stop starting on initiatives, spending on things wildly without, again, metrics and KPIs or qualitatives, how we're going to measure success here on things like marketing and events or office space or hires, without any true plan to measure or ROI or firm value. And again, running through that exercise, like, does this move feed this bigger purpose? Really quiets the noise on how to proceed. And I would say when it comes to spend, my pro tip is work with a VC experienced finance or ops expert, whether you bring it in-house or you use a fractional resource like a CFO adjacent or fractional CFO, who can help you with things like, I gotta be your accountability coach on, here's your mission, vision, values. Is this big spend in alignment with that? And also, of course, help you, work on long-term budget and cash management, ensuring, institutional best practices for good financial hygiene are being applied. And that can also help kind of navigate the lost in the sauce problem. And then the third one is this lack of a filtering process or an approach to big decision making about what's important and how to execute on it. And this is, again, like this mission, vision, values filter. This is like the ultimate best recommendation, and where this comes into play with every major and minor decision a firm needs to make. If you ask yourself, is it aligned with my mission? Does it embody my values? And does it feed my bigger vision? And if all of those 3 are a yes, then you know where to allocate your time, your money, your resources.
Interesting.
But if there's a no, like, then we hit pause, right? Like, let's dig deeper. Let's do some more research. Let's bring in somebody, your trusted advisors, whoever you trust, in your circle, your team, your peers. My attitude is, if you can't get to a yes on MVV for big and small decisions, then the answer is a no. And don't waste money, don't waste time, don't waste resource. Like, your GP time is incredibly precious, and having this as a little gut check at all times, and also having people you trust to help you gut check is a huge lift. That's my big kaboom on that.
That makes a ton of sense. I mean, I've seen so many examples of firms I've been involved with, but also friends and colleagues. And, the main thing I'm hearing you say is, like, let's make sure that the leadership of the firm is totally aligned, whether that is one person or whether that's multiple kind of co-GP partners. But make sure everybody's aligned so we know where we're spending money, where we're spending time, where we're looking to hire. Because I've seen examples where firms can have some pretty big issues when people are not aligned on all of those, investment of money, but more importantly, time and attention.
Absolutely. And I think, like, a really good, like, little antidote is, real estate is less than it probably used to be, maybe in the Bay Area, but on the, corporate side, but spending big bucks on a fancy office from a Sand Hill Road price per square foot, or even doing a expansive build out. I mean, the cost is immense, and you can go back to your values, and is having face time fundamentally aligned with our core values? Does it serve them? Does it feed them? That can be, or are we awesome remote and we save our real estate bucks and our tenant improvement dollars to go and have a really awesome retreat 2 or 3 times a year where we get that in-person connection that we need to feed our culture and our values. So a lot of that, again, is like a perfect filter for MVV.
Yeah, makes sense. And I imagine there's a number of folks listening now who maybe they've started their firms, but they haven't set this, spent time thinking through this. Is it too late, or, what would you counsel them?
Yeah, never too late. Because, and I see this so much with firms that we work with, especially when we get in pretty early. What's happening in, year one and two. It looks so much different in year 3, 4, 5, 6, and beyond. And your mission, vision, values isn't locked in stone, you know, forever thing, in the sense of it should evolve and change as your firm evolves and changes. And you should be going back regularly to check in with it and evolve it and iterate on it. And I think the thing you really hit the nail on the head with is doing it as a team, at the leadership level. You have to have alignment, and you should be doing this together always, and make it fun. Make it a team retreat, make it a tradition or a ritual that's special to you and your firm. And yeah, it is so much a part of the true, partnership alignment and long-term stability. And if you guys can all agree on these core things, you're really setting a strong foundation for success.
Yeah, and so you're saying it's also how often should you revisit? I mean, is every 6 month too tight? Is it on a
I
fund
would
cycle
say,
basis?
I mean, this is your foundation, so you don't need to, kick the cement too much.
Yeah.
And I think, again, your firm is unique to you. So if checking in on them as a part of your annual strategic planning feels good, amazing. I would say my recommendation would be probably every new true fund cycle, as part of like kind of the pre-marketing exercises, like just do a gut check on them. Do they need updating? Are they still relevant to us today? And maybe the answer is yes, and onward we go. Maybe, you tweak a thing or two. But I think probably every fund cycle is a good cadence. And if you want to be more aggressive, then good on you. But, they're feeding things like authenticity and integrity and personal reputation. And those things probably aren't very malleable. So no need to go back off. To go back to the well too often.
Yeah, makes sense. Amazing. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about how this relates to hiring and team building.
Yeah.
Certainly, that's kind of the most important part of any venture team, or the people that are on it, and their ability to execute. So how would you align or explain, kind of the MVV values into that hiring process or experience?
I think it absolutely should be a part of the experience. I think it's something you should share in your JD, or I think it's something you could put on your website if you felt so emboldened. But I definitely think if not on the JD, within the first interview process, like it should be put in front of candidates. I think you'll immediately weed out people who are not in alignment with you. And of course, like being in a venture firm, whether you're partner level or not, I mean, typically these are small teams. It's a very intimate working environment. It feels, I think, at the partner level like a marriage, and at the team level like a family. And you want people who are aligned with you, who are excited to show up and bust their hump to be there and give you their all. And I think getting your mission, vision, values incorporated into your hiring process is an awesome way to ensure that people coming to your firm are attracted to you for the right reasons and stay in your pipeline because they buy into what you believe in. And I think, employees, especially whether they're on the investing side or they're back of house, there's so much training and institutional knowledge that's required to, really have an impact when you come into a firm for the first time. I would say like most back office folks take a year to fully wrap their brain around the role and get up to speed on institutional knowledge. So, that's a significant investment before, they can really activate and into the role. And on the investing side, it's, we can debate how long it takes for someone to become a great investor, but maybe you have a mission, vision, values that's a 2-year and out associate program, but maybe you want to hire more for the long term, or you're trying to cultivate future partners and leaders of the firm. Getting this aligned day one is a game changer, and making sure that you're bringing the right people in the door and building the firm with the right kind of humans. And I think people feel like you're going to invest in them too when you lead with what you believe in, and it is an investment, and hopefully they'll be inclined to stay longer because, they love it too.
Yeah. And the expectation is set of timing and expectation.
And mishires are expensive. So like, let's not, and your time is valuable.
Yes.
So let's not waste it. It's precious, right?
Yeah, totally. And you've seen so many VC firms over the years, thinking through, I mean, hiring, yes. And then the other flip side of that is like succession planning, right? As GPs start to think about moving on and passing the torch to the next generation for true leadership. Can you share some learnings of MDV values or
Ye-
MVV there as well?
Yeah. I had the pleasure and I guess non-direct pain of seeing some pretty significant legacy firms pass leadership across, and then small firms kind of struggling to figure out how to compose the right team. And I think finally the LP landscape is shifting enough that I think in the last decade there was a lot of pressure for that LPs put on GPs to hire or bring not start a fund solo, bring in somebody else. And I think that unfortunately and in certain situations forced a lot of marriages that weren't the right fit. I think they're finally softening on that, which I'm overdue. But all of this is to say that legacy planning is not called a legacy for nothing. It takes a long time to not only design a firm transition plan, but also pull the pieces together. And even when you start to execute on it, it takes many, many more years for all of those pieces to come together and align and truly transfer, the baton to, the next crew that's coming in, or how you envision your firm being led or legacied. My humble opinion, and based on all of the wild things that I have seen, hiring a new partner, the courtship minimum 6 months, unless you have a pre-existing relationship, up to a year. I think you really need, like, it is a marriage. You really need to get to know somebody. You need to do very detailed background checks on each other in terms of, talking to former founders, talking to former colleagues, spending time, genuine time with each other. I think there's a joke, get on a 6 hour or more flight with somebody, sit next to them and see if you still like them when you get off the plane.
Yep.
It's funny, but it's that's the kind of person you wanna really build a firm with. And finding those relationships, if you don't already have them in your in your network and in your prior experience, takes time. And then beyond that, if we're talking multiple GP led firms, adding headcount means adding complexity from how you
Yeah.
want to run your shop, how you make decisions, how from voting on deals to bigger and smaller things, and really making sure, to your point, that you have alignment as a team, and adding more leadership to the pool. It makes things complicated and can kind of unsettle whatever was the normal before. So allowing for those types of transitions and not making knee-jerk hires, and really creating a transition plan, ideally in between fund cycles. Doing wild partner swaps in the middle of a fundraise is, typically not a good signal unless
Yep.
it's a special circumstance. And then when you do make those changes, giving a couple years for them to fully settle in and adjust, and then make the decision about what's next. And now we're talking, a decade-long process. And I really push firms to think about, especially if they've got senior leadership, any type of leadership that's, we can all argue about what retirement age is, but, who are, on the cusp or even looking onto the horizon of what that is, that's a 10-year timeline to get ready to transition. And having these conversations now is so important. So you have the timeline to start planning for them. Again, going back to like hiring, junior investors, associate principal level, they take a decade or more to hone their skills and deploy capital and become GP partner ready. That's a huge investment and needs to be obviously very well thought out and plotted against the larger timeline. And then of course, where I love to chime, building a solid back office team that, whether it's fractional or in-house or a
Yep.
combination of the two, that can really support the firm effectively and, give you that lift that you need. It takes years to fully formulate and, and so, and train up and really, impart your institutional knowledge onto. And the more fund cycles they go through, the stronger they become. So again, we're talking, years that become decades. So, I think your firm or legacy legacy plan should be as, built into as long as fund cycles last. If you've got, 3 vehicles actively deploying, or, your layered management fees, and you're looking to raise another, we're talking rough, 10-year average cycle, it's 40 years of care that your fund needs. And what's your plan for that, both short and long? And what's your thinking about bigger picture, that 40-year timeline as an example? What is the legacy that you want to leave with your firm? And who are the people, again, going back to mission, vision, values, who believe the things you believe to be true and can embody that, and that you want to impart, this thing that you've built onto, and ensure that it trends in the right direction, right? And then also, part of legacy planning is, unfortunately, Murphy's Law, planning for the unexpected. What can go wrong will go wrong. What if something catastrophic happens? An unexpected death, or an illness that causes this major shift in leadership, and who will take the charge? And if you don't have anybody in your funnel, even remotely, that could step in, or that you're nurturing as a part of bigger picture firm building, you're in a pretty tough situation. And I know we can't plan for every little thing that's going to go wrong, but the more and more we think about these things and we talk about them as a leadership team, and start to put plans to paper, if you will, or a Google sheet, the better off you are. And honestly, this is what best in class firms do. They're stewards of their money. They are fiduciaries to their LPs, and they think through these details and chart a path. And even if that path changes multiple times, they have a bigger picture plan for how to care for all that is under their charge, from the cash to the investments and the firm.
Yeah, that's a lot. It's really a lot of introspection and thoughtful planning. And I think more, just hearing you talk through it, it's much more, it's a whole other job other than going out and finding a great investment and investing in it, and that's where we all get started. Like, that's what excites us. And then before you know it, you're building a team and building for the future. So thanks for detailing it in such a nice way.
Yeah.
And I guess now shifting a little bit, talking about firm brand, you mentioned it at the beginning, but how do you see the mission, vision, values relating to brand?
Yeah, I think firms need to decide, whether today or the day when they start, again, who they want to be when they grow up. And it's never too late to get started on that. But, obviously the beginning is the best time. But again, it's an insanely competitive market. There are more funds raising now than ever before. There are more just pure funds than there ever have been. And venture has gone through this, uncharacteristic and unprecedented growth in the last 15 years. And I think when it comes to brand as a firm, and as it relates to your mission, vision, values, you need to decide on what your brand strategy is from the jump. And I think it kind of falls into 3 buckets. One, either your marketing and brand presence is a critical component to who you are, because it feeds your mission, vision, values, and it reinforces them. And you view marketing and brand and the resources required to fuel that as a fundamental business expense. And you're going to invest in it consistently from day one. And I think, what I see this in lifetime looks like is emerging managers who believe in this and make it their ethos. They start day one, whether it's in as a hire or outsourced help, using a designer or a marketing consultant. And if they start outsourced, their top internal hiring priorities are bringing in a marketing hire or a branding hire as part of who they are and who they're going to be, and truly, putting their money where their mouth is and investing in this from day one. And, there are a lot of big shops, you don't need to call them out, who've made this their thing, their shtick, and there's everything in between. But, firms who take this approach, really, truly, this is what they believe in. They feel like this is a differentiator, and they follow through to the letter. And I think you see the results. You do. We don't need to name drop, but firms who have built their brands, who they are, because we don't need to say them, right?
Yeah.
So that's path one. Path two is it's not a priority and it doesn't feed your mission, vision, values. So I see a lot of firms just maintaining like a minimal viable VC presence, pitch deck, website, logo, they've got some social channels, they post sporadically or around moments, or whether it's a liquidity moment or a fundraise moment or milestone moments. And there's nothing wrong with this approach. This is your firm, this is your mission, your vision, your values. And if, pounding your chest in the LinkedIn town square on a daily basis doesn't fuel you and doesn't serve your bigger purpose, you don't need to do it. And my attitude is always, if you can't do something well, that is okay. Lean into what your strong suits are and let everyone else shine where they need to shine.
Totally.
But I would say emerging funds who take this approach tend to not bring in full-time hires and try not to compete with their peers. They usually outsource a lot of this sort of critical work and design to design shops and marketing consultants. And a lot of them keep on like a fractional marketing consultants. And a lot of them lean into one thing, which I think is great. Whether it's someone in the firm is a prolific writer and is the voice of the firm. Maybe they are very active on LinkedIn or Twitter. Maybe they, really do a lot of podcasts or speaking, or, they've got subject matter expertise or sector focus expertise. And that's what they make their thing. And they lean into that one thing and don't try to broad brush and don't try to make it their whole firm's identity. And I think all of that is great. Again, like lean into what you're great at and don't try to be something you're not. And that authenticity in your brand will come through, which is the most important thing. And then there's approach 3. I love this one because I think it's kind of fun. Your brand is literally, we are under the radar. By intention, by design, and in staying that way, it does feed your mission, vision, values, and your fund's thesis. And you're like, what the heck is this? This doesn't make any sense, but I'm gonna go a little deeper. And I think
No, I can think of the firms that have don't have a website, or it's just a logo on a website, but nothing else you can see.
Yeah, and what they're doing is everything that you don't see, right? So funds who take this approach tend to have a unique strategy in that. Well, one, doing absolutely nothing is low cost, maybe on the marketing front, but they tend to be taking a unique path and building their own exclusive little mountain, if you will, of whatever their differentiator is, whatever their secret sauce is or unique thing. And they tend to be spending dollars there rather than on, a fancy web page or, whatever kind of other brand resources you would, and marketing resources you typically spend money on. They're basically building this little kind of VIP thing, typically inner sanctum, something that we hear about, whispers on the wind. Did you get invited to this exclusive retreat? Did you get invited to this VIP dinner? Instead of being on the LinkedIn soapbox, they are taking a really differentiated approach and spending what would be their marketing dollars on this differentiated strategy. And it can look like a myriad of things for a myriad of funds. But yeah, I think the physical approach you see is they've got a landing page. Maybe they have a LinkedIn profile or not, but like their special thing is the thing they're doing behind the scenes and investing dollar and resource into that really makes them stand out in their own way. And again, feeds their fund thesis, feeds the brand they're trying to build, and feeds their mission, vision, values of who they're trying to be as a firm. Yeah. And I can say, you can also combine these strategies. And,
I was going to ask, is one of these better than the other? Like, would you recommend, one or the other?
I really don't think there is no one ring to rule them all. Like, it is you. This is your firm. This is your baby. This is your, your probably for many people, their life's work.
Yeah.
I know Strut for me has become my life's work, and how I want to show up, needs to be authentic to who I am. And taking a blended approach, there's nothing wrong with that. If you are doing, V-Light marketing efforts, but you've got this super secret cool thing that you're building or doing, or you've created this exclusive community of, founders, or, an expert network, or you're hosting these really high touch, intimate dinners, or whatever they are, like, you should do what's true to you and find the combination that delivers on your vision, what you're trying to accomplish, and speaks to your core stakeholders in the right ways. That's how you differentiate in the market. And I think differentiating yourself and having that special thing, no matter what the approach is how you stand out and how you make a name for yourself, rather than following the playbook. Again, don't get lost in chasing the dragon. Don't follow everyone else's playbook. Write your own.
Yeah.
And like take inspiration from other people, absolutely. And see who's, winning or see, wowing the crowd and in certain categories, and then make it your own. I
Yeah.
don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Love it. Authenticity. That's great. And what are some common pitfalls that you've seen along the path?
Yeah. Stepping away from marketing and going back to like the bigger mission, vision, values, common
Yeah, fair
pitfalls.
enough.
Yeah. I think people get stuck trying to do this. I've tried to do this for my firm many times, and I've got like 3 different working docs, and they're all evolving all the time, mainly because my company is evolving, faster than it ever has. But
Yeah.
it's natural to get stuck. It's natural to try to go with all best intentions into a 2-day offsite, and we're gonna nail this to the ground, and you come out of it like, oh, we only got like half of it done, or we got really stuck on this one part, or we couldn't get alignment. And that is so totally natural and normal. And don't be discouraged or swayed by the fact that it didn't go perfectly. This is it's a working masterpiece, and you're going to struggle sometimes to get it right. And I think it shouldn't be easy. It should be parts of it should be easy because it should be natural, but like getting it right for you is an evolution and not an instant snap creation. And I would say if you are getting stuck, whether doing it solo or you're struggling to get it accomplished as a team, bring in an expert. There are some people who are fantastic at this. I can get a couple of names if you want to share them with the,
we
with
can
the
put them in
mastermind
the show
crew.
notes.
Yeah, but there are lots of people who specialize in doing this for a living, and they can kind of help you work through the places. Sometimes just giving you like the right feeder, phrase, or word gets you to the next level, and or giving them what you have and having them help kind of massage and pull it to the right place is helpful. And I would say, like, don't be afraid to ask for help. We all need it.
Yeah.
And this is not easy work all the time. So having someone kind of shepherd you is impactful, and I wouldn't be shy away from doing it. I think other common pitfalls are, again, the more your partnership grows, the more voices in the room, and too many opinions sometimes dilute what you're trying to accomplish. This really should be done by top core leadership, the top team, the founding partners, or whoever your kind of inner sanctum is. Things tend to just get watered down, or too many voices around a table. Too much data is sometimes not good here. You struggle to get consensus, and it doesn't produce strong outcomes. So having an inner sanctum of people you're going to do this with at the firm level is good. And then of course you can always share it with the rest of the team or the other partners and get their feedback and insights and perspective. But if you're trying to do this as like a power session, don't bring too many voices into the room. It kind of stifle the process. And my other big common pitfall is like not documenting what you're doing. Please write everything down, whether it's you're doing it on a whiteboard and you take a photo, you've got someone being the scribe or the note taker, or you're using AI to help you capture all of this, whether you're doing it in person or virtually. Record the session and transcribe it. Like, ideas will continue to flow long after the session is over, and having sort of a parking lot of where you got to, whether virtually or in person, and how to iterate on these ideas and bring new ideas to the table as they come to you. Like, I always joke, I have like things come to me when I'm in the car, when I'm at a workout, like they just come in weird times, and having a place where you can dump all of that and use it as a parking lot for moving the cars around and getting the right alignment is really important.
Totally. Makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
So I guess getting to the end of our time here, a couple of last questions. If you were to kind of give one top level, number one piece of advice to GPs who are listening, what would that be?
Yeah. I mean, it's back to the top. Don't skip this. Go back and do it. Even if you're like, oh, we're 5 funds in, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, you write the rules. It's your fund.
Yeah.
And do this. Even if you do a V Lite version, I think that's powerful. It doesn't have to be some 30-page doc. It could literally be a 1-pager, and I think that is powerful. And don't feel like it's too much. Don't slack. Like, you wouldn't let your founder make an excuse for not doing this. So like, do it too. Be the talk you walk, right? And I think of it as like a house. This is the foundation, and houses without foundations don't stand upright, and firms without foundations don't stand the test of time. Things fall apart, things become wobbly when you don't have a good base and a good North Star and core leadership who is driving MVV forward. That is who's taking the reins and who's leading your ship where it needs to go. Yeah, and then I would say second most important thing sub to that is if you're going to do a mission values exercise, use it. Use the filtering framework. Use it all the time, constantly. Big decision, medium decision, small decision. It is your gut check, your roadmap, your Bible. Like it is and have someone be your accountability coach if possible, whether it's your other partners or some like a trusted, person in the firm or an advisor. But use the framework. It is incredibly impactful and will bring so much clarity and focus to all of the decisions you need to make as a fund manager.
Yep. And like you said earlier, like ask yourself, does this fit the mission? Yes or no? Does it fit the vision? Yes or no? Does it fit the values? Yes or no? If any of those are no, pause and try to figure out like why.
Let's go deeper.
Maybe you shouldn't be doing it, right?
Yeah.
That's very tactical and very helpful.
Yeah. And a lot of firms use this, not a mission values, but they have a process for their deal flow decisions. And it's no different. It's different in that it's your firm building decisions, but you take a very, methodical approach to making deal decisions. You should be doing the same for your firm.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
And I guess as a last question, any final thoughts or inspirational thoughts to help us GPs who are probably just listening to this and we're like, oh my God, that's a lot of work. Where do I find the time? So,
well, number one, hit me up. I'm happy to help you do this.
Yep.
Selfish plug.
Yep. Absolutely.
We can definitely do it as a project. You don't have to, get on contract with us. We can definitely give the VC Mastermind discount. Happy to, happy to help in that process. But I would just say like your firm deserves this. You deserve this, and I think we owe it to ourselves and to the founders, the LPs, each other. This ecosystem we're building, like. All of the firms who are in market right now are going to shape the next chapter of venture for decades to come. And I think we owe it to ourselves to be the brands we should be and live and work with integrity and authenticity. And I always, Dick Cran, like may he rest in peace, was someone that I got to know personally. I was fortunate to know, and I like a man who walked and talked, mission, vision, values, and was the most authentic and awesome example of this for me in the early phases of my career. And I would say like, be like Dick, think like Dick, like he built something you're proud of, that you are proud to leave to your other partners, your firm, your team, your LPs, your founders, your kids, your grandkids. Like we're all here because we're trying to change the future and invest in incredible things that are going to change the way we live, work, eat, think, survive here, and do it for the legacy of venture. Like it deserves it. You deserve it. We all deserve it. And that's my motivational go get it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, yeah, I mean, Dick was the founder of NEA, and gosh, man, that firm's been around for 40 plus years, and they've built an incredible legacy. So
and he was
what
an
a place to
person.
start your foundation.
Yeah. I was lucky, and I was fortunate to get to know him, and he was an incredible person, and truly he walked his values every single day in that office, and I was lucky to see it and be inspired by it. But I think it's a good lesson for us all to take home and honor his legacy too, because he deserves. Yeah, I
remember I got to meet him once. I was at like a founder's birthday party at Cotonia in San Francisco, and he showed up, and I was just like in awe. I like said hello to him, and I just kind of wanted to like absorb the legendary legacy and what he's able to do. Godfather.
And he's such like a genuinely nice person, and that exuded out of every pore. Good corn-fed Midwest soul, and I got to get to know him well, and I feel lucky for that. And I think we can all get inspired to be bigger than we are, and we're all literally investing in it. So let's do it in our own house too.
Yep. Love it. Kristen Ostro with strutconsulting.com. Thank you so much for spending so much time and thought and energy being here today and sharing with the VC Mastermind Group. And thank you for being a supporter of the VC Mastermind Group. And as we get off the ground, And for anybody that's looking to contact Kristen, you can reach out to me, or you can go to strutconsulting.com and find all the information there. But we'd love to connect the dots for anybody who can work with you to help them scale themselves.
Yeah, you bet.
So.
Contact form goes straight to me. So don't be
Amazing.
shy.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thanks everyone who's listening. Thanks for listening to VC Mastermind. I'm Jacob Mullins, and I look forward to chatting with you again soon. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Village Global podcast. You can check us out online at villageglobal.vc. We'd love to hear from you, your feedback, your ideas, your inspirations. You can email us at hello@villageglobal.vc.